Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is session number 155. Good to be back with everybody here tonight. Tonight I am excited to get back to completing our discussion that we began last time, which is the forensic analysis of Gollum's escape from Mirkwood. This, of course, is one of those things, one of many things, that as we go through the text really carefully together, I find that I never really thought through. I've thought about this sometimes, but I've never really spent any time actually exploring the suggestions of the text. So that's what we're... Oh, hang on a second. Sorry. Click that first. There we are. Okay, sorry. Now you're getting me on Discord. Apologies. Okay, there we are. Sorry. Totally clicked that. Didn't take, apparently. Okay, anyway, sorry. So as I'm saying, this is one of those things that I have thought about, but never really thought through. Never really pursued the suggestions of the text. And it seems fairly clear that Tolkien did think about this, right? That is to say, and I say that because, of course, it's entirely possible to imagine that the references that Legolas threw off are just tossed off references, right? Tolkien has Legolas say that they have no idea what happened because he himself never worked out what happened. That's not impossible. I'm not necessarily saying that I think that that's what happened, but it's certainly something that has to be a possibility that has to be entertained. But I think that there is some evidence that that is in fact not the case. There's some really, really strong evidence. So let us go straight back into it. So of course, this is the passage that we were working on. Let me just reread the description of the event as Legolas gives it to the council. It was that very night of summer, yet moonless and starless, that orcs came on us at unawares. We drove them off after some time. They were many and fierce, but they came from over the mountains, and were unused to the woods. When the battle was over, we found that Gollum was gone, and his guards were slain or taken. It then seemed plain to us that the attack had been made for his rescue, and that he knew of it beforehand. How that was contrived we cannot guess, but Gollum is cunning, and the spies of the enemy are many. The dark things that were driven out in the year of the dragon's fall have returned in greater numbers, and Merkwood is again an evil place, save where our realm is maintained. Okay. Yeah, now, Brandon, I agree. It does sound highly unlikely that Tolkien wouldn't have thought that through. The one thing I would say, Brandon, that is likely, I agree with you. It's not likely, but it is always something that has to be considered, right? I mean, Tolkien wasn't omniscient and did make mistakes. But even more commonly, Brandon, what does sometimes happen is that he has an idea that he puts in to an earlier draft, and then his ideas might completely change, but instead of taking it out, he'll kind of leave things in. I mean, he, is again a pattern that we saw really clearly when we were going through the history of the Lord of the Rings together in the Mythgard Academy, is that Tolkien is extremely conservative. That is, he doesn't like to throw things away. And even when he cuts things out of his drafts, he tends to, I used to joke about that, he had a drawer that he would put like the ideas or the clippings in, and he would bring them out later on. It's pretty unusual for him just to throw things away. So therefore, it is possible that he would get himself into a position where he would hang on to something, even if he decided that this paragraph worked in the context of the council, even though, the ideas that lay behind it had changed. It's possible that could, but Brandon, I agree with you. I don't think that it's actually what happened. Okay, so let's get, sorry, actually, all right. One last thing I wanted to add about that is that there are two things that we have to, there are two things that we could potentially be thinking when we're trying to figure out what Tolkien's thoughts were about this, right? First is that we're trying to figure out what Tolkien was thinking when he wrote this paragraph, right? But the other thing that is at least as likely, and actually I would say more likely, is that to see where Tolkien got to in his analysis of this paragraph. Tolkien is very likely, of course. What Brandon, I think, would be extremely uncharacteristic of Tolkien would be for him never to have gone back and retconned this himself. This is the thing that he did so often, right? And Brandon, it's one of the reasons why, even though he does sometimes leave some of that old material in, like I said, stuff which doesn't 100% actually fit the final version of the story, but it still works. And one of the reasons it still works is that he was really good at making it work, even retroactively, right? Going back, doing some analysis, which is kind of like the analysis that we're doing a careful reading of the text and explaining, not as somebody, not like an author, right? When Tolkien talks about his story, he doesn't sound like J.K. Rowling telling you what she really meant by the story, right? Which often contradicts what the book itself actually says. How Tolkien approached it always was as a reader, right? He would go and he would quote from the text, and he would explain, he would when he was inventing, he would invent a story that would explain what the text says. Anyway, so okay, so let's see. So let us, with that stuff in mind, again, so Brandon, that's what would be really unlikely if Tolkien never came back. It wouldn't be weird for him to kind of leave in something that he hadn't really thought through, or something where his thoughts had gone into it in a totally different direction, but it would be even more unusual for him never to go back and then make up a story that would explain this passage that he had left in. Okay. So let us think through the issues here more or less systematically. First big question: chance or conspiracy, right? Do we think it more likely? This seems to me to be the big preliminary question, right? The two real possibilities: either his escape was contrived, or it just happened by chance. We talked about this some last time. I suggested that I think the conspiracy is much more likely. And I still believe that conspiracy is much more likely. Conspiracy is what Legolas points to, right? Legolas seems even to take for granted that it was conspiracy, right? They don't know how it was contrived. That it was contrived, he seems to take for granted, right? Now, again, I am very far from putting things outside the power of Providence, and I absolutely agree with people who say that this could well be something that Providence, basically that Providence would want to arrange this, right? That Gollum ultimately is going to be Iluvatar's instrument to destroy the ring, right? We know this, right? We know that it will only be because of Gollum that the ring gets destroyed. So I acknowledge that it is not necessarily intrinsically more unlikely than other chance events that have been orchestrated by Providence in the story, nor is it something that is, like the fact that it involves the bad guys or an apparent win for the bad guys doesn't necessarily, I think, I say necessarily, exclude it from the realm of Providence, from the realm of conspiracy. So anyway, I think that chance is theoretically possible. I don't believe it, and the reason I don't believe it, and no, yes, I agree with Zephan and with Ashnazk here that chance and conspiracy are hardly mutually exclusive, right? Not at all, not at all. But as far as the the immediate cause of the thing. Like, did this come about because was Gollum sprung by somebody on purpose, right? Not just by Iluvatar, right? Yes, I think so. At least, again, what evidence there is, the immediate context. Legolas seems to assume that there was a conspiracy. There doesn't seem to be any real suggestion to sort of contradict that. Yeah, exactly. I don't think, though, I mean, so when we're really thinking of like the things that have been organized by pure chance, it's chance instead of choice, right? It's not something that anybody planned to happen. I mean, it is only a coincidence, according to Gildor, that he and his party happened to wander through and encounter Frodo and Pippin and Sam right at that time when the Black Rider was about to discover them, right? That was a chance meeting. There was not a conspiracy on behalf, like, this was not planned by Frodo. It was not planned by Gildor. It was certainly not planned by the Nazgul, right? This does not seem to have those kinds of elements. So I think that I'm going with conspiracy here. Let us operate under that premise. So if it's a conspiracy, who initiates the conspiracy? There are two options here, right? One is by Gollum, and the other is by Gollum's conspirators, right? Whoever it was who is commanding the orcs that sprung Gollum, right? One of those two have to initiate it. Now, as for who that is, this has to come back to Sauron. I mean, there aren't so many options there. It's a squad of orcs, right? So, this has to be something that Sauron has a hand in. I mean, unless it's Saruman, they could theoretically be Saruman's orcs. But Saruman is the only other one who is in command of orcs, and I don't think it was him. We have no reason to think that it was Saruman, and there are some reasons to think that it was Sauron. Anyway, I am. So I'm going to say, and there are going to be are likely to be other agents involved, but I'm going to sort of lump that into the general category of Sauron, right? He's like the Team Sauron is the one who is conspiring with Gollum here. So the question is, who started it? Did Gollum reach out to them, or did they reach out to him? If Gollum had started it, we have to consider two things, right? One possibility is of Gollum. The two things that we have to think of are, why would Gollum do it, and how would Gollum do it, right? If Gollum initiated it, then that means that we have to believe that he decides up in his tree, right? Here he is, up in the tree, trapped by the Wood Elves. And he's thinking, I would like to escape, but I can't get away from these elves by myself. I'm going to send up a flare somehow, right? I'm going to find a way to reach out and communicate with my fine new friends, right? Remember which Gandalf says that, Gollum boasts about his new friends, right? So he claims to have allies. So he's got fine new friends, right? He's going to find a way to reach out to those new friends. And I think that that's possible. I think that's I don't think that either one of those things is impossible. Either that Gollum would choose to do that, or that he would find a means to do that if he wanted to. The means would be a little bit tricky. When we'll come back to that. But to me, the bigger question is that what he would do? yes, Gollum boasts of his fine new friends, but that's when he is retaliating against his captors, right? When Gandalf is interrogating him and he responds to his interrogation by basically warning Gandalf, right? Hey, like, you better watch it, man, because like you're going to get in trouble. Like, I've got fine new friend. Remember, he's terrified, right? You know, the fear of Sauron is deep in his heart right now. And so he's trying to basically deploy that, right? Trying to sort of share that. This immensely terrifying person that I met, right? He's going to come for you, man, right? Does that mean that Gollum is actually going to reach out to him? To Sauron, that is? That he really considers Sauron his bud? You know, his ally, that he can call on at need, that he would call on at need. You know, look, at the very least, right? At the very least, Gollum's got to be thinking to himself, well, I was a prisoner in Barad-dûr, right? And I'm a prisoner now in Mirkwood. He's getting better treatment now, right? So, like, he thinks that he escaped, remember, from Mordor. He is under the impression, we're going to talk about this a good deal later on, but he is still operating under the idea that he escaped under his own power, right? Why would he go back? Why would he sign himself up for that deliberately? Why would he reach out to Sauron and say, hey, yeah, I'm in prison. Could you recapture me so I could go back to your far worse prison than the one that I'm in now? That would be handy, right? That's, to me, the part that I can't really get behind. That's why I have a really hard time imagining Gollum is reaching out to Sauron for help. Because, remember, he can brag about his fine new friends, but he's lying when he says that he thinks he escaped from them. He thinks that, you know, he put one over on Sauron, that Sauron meant to keep him and that he got away somehow. So again, I don't see him signing himself up for that. And I agree with a couple of the people who were posting on this, that Gollum is generally an independent operator. It does not seem like Gollum that his answer, you know, his recourse in this kind of a circumstance would be reach out for help, phone a friend. You know, phone a friend, that is not how Gollum operates. He is a solitary operator, and he is much more likely to wait patiently and look for an opportunity to escape. Now, I agree with you, Lincoln, that I'm not saying that he's really enjoying a fine time and that he might come around to believing that his time in Merkwood is just a comfortable and friendly retirement plan, that he could really quite settle down to enjoying amicably. I agree that he does not enjoy it. Absolutely. But again, it's pretty clear that he enjoyed being tortured in Barad-dûr probably less. That's all I'm saying, is that I don't think that he's disliking being up a tree in Mirkwood so badly that he's saying, please take me back to Barad-dûr to get me out of this. Anyway, so that's... But can I imagine that he would seize the opportunity if the conspiracy were initiated on the other side? Would he go along with it? Yes, that I can easily see, because he believes in his own cunning, right? If he knew that orcs were coming and that they would attack the elves, he would definitely be thinking that here's a good chance he could escape from the orcs, right? Or, you know, maybe escape from both of them in the confusion, which doubtless he sort of wanted to do. So anyway, I definitely think that seems to me more like Gollum's way of thinking. So for these reasons, I don't think that this was a conspiracy initiated by Gollum. It just does not seem right. Why would he do it? I don't think he would do it. Therefore, it seems that if it is going to be a conspiracy, which seems most likely, that it is therefore most likely to be a conspiracy started by Sauron, that Sauron chose to spring Gollum. So that leads us to our next question. If Sauron initiates this, why? Why does Sauron initiate this? Now, I want to come back to the point, Flammifer, that you, I think, were the first one to make on the discussion board, and this is a very excellent point. And this, to me, if there's a smoking gun in this crime, this one is the smoking gun, right? What Flammifer points out is that if you look at the Tale of Years in the appendix, you notice that the date of Gollum's escape, which is not given, of course, in the Council of Elrond, the date is very conspicuous. Gollum is sprung from the tree in Mirkwood on the same day that the Witch King attacks Osgiliath. The Nazgul are emerging and driving back the armies of Gondor and securing the bridges over the Anduin so that they, the Nazgul, can depart and head out towards the Shire on the same day that Gollum escapes. And that's exactly Ashnag. I think we can see so remember, the Tale of Years, when I talk about Tolkien retconning things later on, the Tale of Years is one of the first places we see him doing this. It is true, Ashnag's Unfinished Tales is the other place, right? Unfinished Tales is full of retconning, right? This is him coming back to it years later, like 10, 15 years in some cases, after writing the original text, right? And coming back and expanding some of those stories, rethinking some of those stories, recasting some of them, and explaining some things that didn't get explained, working some things out, right? But we can already see, even before he talks about that more explicitly in the Hunt for the Ring, we can see from the Tale of Years that he's already thinking that way, right? He didn't have a date assigned to the escape for Gollum. I don't think there's any reason to believe he has a date in mind when he wrote that paragraph in the Council of Elrond, Legolas explaining about the escape. But when he goes back and adds it into the chronology, when he goes back and works that out, he assigns it to be on that day, which makes it look almost certainly to be a coordinated event, right? That he is attacking Osgiliath and he sends a troop of orcs to attack Merkwood for the sake of attacking Gollum. Now, Lupilia, it is possible, of course, that he's doing coordinated attacks on the northern front and on the western front there at the same time, right? And that it has nothing to do with Gollum. That is theoretically possible, but I don't believe it. And this is the reason I don't believe it. Merkwood, who's Merkwood to him, right? Why Merkwood? If he's going to be attacking his major enemies, he'd be attacking Lothlorien before he'd attack Mirkwood. Galadriel's a heck of a lot more scary than Thranduil. And anyway, he doesn't attack Mirkwood. He attacks the tree that Gollum was captured in, right? I mean, this is not a general assault on Mirkwood. They're not invading and laying siege to Thranduil's halls. There doesn't seem to be much evidence that there are any elf casualties apart from the guards who were guarding Gollum. So again, I don't think that this is there's not really much evidence that this is a general assault on Mirkwood. Yeah, JJ, I agree. If it was a serious attack, it was a very, very poor one. Agreed. So, okay, so a conspiracy initiated by Sauron still, I think, is by far the best explanation of this. So, our next question is why? Why does Sauron do this? Why would Sauron care if Gollum is captured? And we had talked about, the possibility that he doesn't want Gollum to squeal any more than he's had a chance to do, lest Gollum reveals something. That seems to me a little bit weak because he's already had plenty of opportunity to squeal. I can't imagine it's just to shut him up. Besides, if he wanted to shut him up, he'd probably just kill him. So I find that one that not an enormously likely. Besides, it's a whole lot of effort to go to. Like, Gollum would have to have some kind of really critical information that he could release to the good guys, and I can't imagine what. I mean, he had critical information, but it was only from Sauron that it was a secret, right? So I don't think. Again, I can't see Sauron necessarily caring about anything that much about anything, that such that he's going to orchestrate the movement of orcs into hostile territory in order to prevent. Again, it doesn't seem to me to make any sense. So I think we have to go back to the question, why does he release Gollum in the first place? What is Sauron's Gollum plan? He clearly has a Gollum plan. You can tell by the fact that he didn't kill him, and in fact appears to have let him go, right? All of the evidence says that Sauron deliberately released Gollum into the wild on purpose. He had a reason for that, right? And even though, and you could say even that he had a reason for doing it the way that he did. That's not a given. What I mean is allowing Gollum to believe that he escaped under his own power. He could have taken Gollum, right? Like, personally, he could have walked with Gollum, to the gates, booted him out the gate with his big black boot, and said, because his toes are fine, right? It's only his hand that's in trouble. Boots him out the gate and says, "Now go." Right. And send him on a message or something, or just like tell him that, like, I never want to see you again. Like, he could just release him. He could have made it terror. He could have used it as an opportunity to place deeper terror upon Gollum. But he doesn't do that, right? Instead, he arranges for Gollum to think that he got away on his own. That seems to be a crucial part. Whatever Sauron's plan is, that seems to be a crucial part of that plan, right? That Gollum should think that he escaped of his own volition. So I agree with those who are saying here, and who said on the discussion board, that the only likely explanation for this is that he thinks it's possible that Gollum is going to find the ring. Gollum has already proven responsive to Sauron's summons, right? Gollum made his way south. Gandalf believes it was because the mark that the ring left on him made him open to Sauron's summons, and Sauron was putting out a summons here. So Sauron must believe that he could get Gollum back if he wanted to. And now that he knows about him and has, the way that Aragorn and Gandalf describe the fear of Sauron being deep in Gollum's heart, I can't help but remember the spell of bottomless dread from the earlier drafts. From the earlier drafts of the Silmarillion. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but I suspect that when they're talking about that fear of, that darkness, that shadow of fear that's in Gollum's heart, Aragorn is not just poetically describing the fact that Gollum happens to be scared. Right. He met Sauron, and Sauron was scary, and he's still pretty scared of Sauron. He's not yet recovered from that experience. I don't think that is, he is saying that, but I don't think that's just what Aragorn is saying. There is some hold that Sauron has put on Gollum, I think. So for those two reasons, both the fact that there does seem to be some evidence that Sauron has at least attempted to establish a grip on Gollum's mind, right? A hook that he is sort of set spiritually in Gollum, right, when Gollum was there as his prisoner. And also given the fact that even without that, he came in the first place, right? I think, I think that he, Angrist, I'm not saying a homing spell. I'm saying a domination. He has attempted to dominate the spirit of Gollum personally in a way that is going to make Gollum even more responsive to Sauron's summons. That's what I'm not saying it's a homing spell. I'm not saying that he like has a, like a, like a, a Mordor version of the Find My iPhone app, where he can like track Gollum and, make him make a pinging sound. It's not like a homing spell. But it is, again, a sort of a hook that he's put in him, that he has, he wants to be able to command Gollum, and he believes that Gollum could still do work for him if he lets him go, and he's willing to let him go because he thinks he can get him back. Even if, perhaps especially if Gollum gets the ring. Gollum was safe with the ring before because Sauron didn't know that he had it and didn't know it was there. This, by the way, is the number one reason for believing that Sauron does not have a ring detector. He cannot sense when the ring is near. He doesn't know. He doesn't have a tracking spell on the ring itself. That's perfectly clear by the fact that he lived in Dol Guldur. I mean, he was, from a continental standpoint, next door neighbors to the ring for quite some time without ever knowing that it was there, right? Without even knowing for sure that it was around there. So anyway, we'll look at this more as we get down into books, book 4 and 5. Anyway, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of that either. Brandon, did I miss, did I miss somebody else suggesting that, Brandon, what you were just responding to? But that's really interesting. The idea that perhaps even Bilbo's restlessness itself, his desire to leave the Shire and go wandering again, might be related to Sauron's cult. Nancy suggested that. Great. That's really interesting. That again, the ring leaves its mark on the bearer and leaves them open to the call. Bilbo doesn't end up in Mordor, right? And we know that the ring had far less influence on Bilbo than it did on Gollum. And what's more, Bilbo was freed of it after he gave up the ring voluntarily. So he's not in any danger of toddling his way down to Mordor responsively like Gollum does. But it's interesting. Could it have had an effect anyway, right? Even the effect was different and manifested itself differently and was obviously much less extreme. But that is a fascinating possibility. That's a fascinating possibility. Anyway, okay. So, yeah, musical, and you're right. Bilbo's wandering off was originally sinister. Yeah, the idea of Bilbo wandering was not necessarily like a happy retirement plan from the beginning. So the idea is not, that is to say, musical, the way I guess I would refer to that is the idea that there was some kind of sinister element to his desire to wander again would be, it would be germane to the story in the way that the story involved. And because I agree, Emily, he had it. Well, he didn't have a propensity to go off and do weird things before he got the ring. His journey was entirely uncharacteristic, of course. But But yeah, I mean, he's obviously a local weirdo after he gets back. That I don't think has to do with the ring necessarily. Anyway, I'm just saying it would be a mild thing, but it's a really interesting suggestion. I think that seems to me very possible, very possible. Anyway, back to Gollum. So again, I am operating under the belief that Sauron releases Gollum on Gollum's own volition because he knows Gollum. Right? He has interrogated Gollum himself. He has tortured Gollum himself. Presumably he was in attendance while Gollum was being tortured. He knows what Gollum wants. He knows his ring, what's more, right? Sauron is the only one who would have the data to be able to examine Gollum, right? And figure out, oh, so this is what happens when a mortal takes my ring and keeps it for himself. He would see the effects that his ring had on Gollum. And even if he didn't necessarily know, because he's never tested this before, right? Gollum is the first mortal. Well, yeah, he's the first mortal that Sauron has ever met who has possessed his ring, right? He met Isildur, but before Isildur possessed his ring, right? And of course, he's never met Bilbo, fortunately for Bilbo. Anyway, so he, after meeting Gollum and interrogating Gollum and examining Gollum, he is going to understand better, most likely, than almost anybody else. In fact, there's only one person in the world who is going to come to understand Gollum better, and Gollum's state better than Sauron, and that's Frodo, right? Frodo is going to understand Gollum better than anybody else because Frodo is in the same position, and whereas Sauron, he's still not he's still studying that one from the outside, right? So he doesn't understand it quite as well. Anyway, so he understands Gollum. He knows if he lets Gollum go, especially if he lets Gollum escape on his own, or believe that he's escaped on his own, he knows what Gollum is going to do. Gollum is going to hunt for the ring. No question. Obviously, right? That is clearly what Gollum is going to do. So he is going to so the fact that he chooses to release Gollum under the circumstances that he does, right? Letting Gollum believe that he is thrown dust in the eyes of Barad-dûr and all of Mordor, right, and escaped by his own cunning. What will Gollum do if that situation is brought about? He will hunt for the ring. So I have to believe that that's what Sauron wanted. That was what Sauron's plan was. Trifle says the idea of Bilbo's restlessness being related to the call is somewhat supported. He says in chapter 1, Bilbo says he'd made up his mind to leave. That's in 3001. The Tale of Years give around 3000 as the shadow of Mordor lengthens. Right, so Bilbo's decision to leave the Shire happens around the same time that Sauron is beginning to put out the call, right? That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay. So exactly, Michael. If he ordered Gollum to find the ring, if he released Gollum and commanded him to find the ring, Gollum would resist, right? And would do something probably and he still would look for the ring, right? But he would be more on guard and trying to throw off any watch that was placed on him or anything. But if he believed that he had escaped himself, he would be less sort of paranoid about that, right? Anyway, okay. So I think that this must be why Sauron had released Gollum. Is this enough also then to explain why Sauron would take enough interest to spring Gollum from prison? Yeah, sure. I don't see why not. And especially here's where we come back to Flammifer's calendar-based smoking gun, right? it's not just that the initiative to free Gollum was undertaken on the same day as another major initiative by Sauron's forces. That, of course, is by itself interesting. But it's not just any old initiative by Sauron's forces. It is also, he's setting out to find the ring, right? Both of those things happen on the same day. Plan A, to find the ring. From Gollum, he has learned, right, the names Shire and Baggins, right? He knows who took the ring, who last had the ring, and the name, anyway, of the place where that person can be found. So that's his strongest lead. And so he puts his strongest and most trustworthy servants to follow that lead. Shire, Baggins, Nazgul, go. And in order for them to go, they take the bridges in Osgiliath. That's step one. There are other things going on there too, but it is step one of the journey of the Nazgul, right? That, I think, is definitely plan A. I'm going to send all 9 of the Nazgul I'm going to get all 9 of the Nazgul to meet up and go after the ring. That's looking like plan A, and he's following his only and strongest active lead. But I think also, again, remember, Sauron is very wise, and he understands his ring. I think that he believes that Gollum has a better chance of tracking down the ring bearer than anyone else. The Nazgul, apart from the Nazgul, right? He could send random folks, right? Random orcs, random highly trained men of some kind or whatever. But Tim, the Nazgul ask for the Shire by name. That's what I'm talking about. Like, he sends them off to find them. Exactly, Flammiferous. Gandalf explains this by saying that Gollum has learned this, that Gollum made his way to Dale and learned of where Bilbo came from. And so it was on his way, when Gollum, was on his way back towards the Shire, that he ended up wandering south towards Mirkwood instead. But anyway, so they're off looking for Baggins in the Shire. That's plan A. But he could send other servants out into the wild. But he has no leads. No other leads, right? And so it would be pretty inefficient to be like, I'm just going to send you out, just wander the continent, hoping that you encounter, the ring bearer. Like, that's pretty low odds. Sauron doesn't do that, except for Gollum, because he knows there's another factor here, right? Gollum has a chance. It's not a good chance, but Gollum has a chance where, some other random servant of Sauron wouldn't really have a chance, right? So Sauron says, I might as well put Gollum to use, and the best use I can put him to is to let him go, let him think he escaped, and then set him loose to find the ring. So apparently he still thinks he's looking at, I've got to find the ring, right? I've got one lead, and so I'm sending all of my strongest servants, all 9 of the Nazgul, pursuing that one lead. I only have one other shot that I know of, right? There's only one other mechanism that I could possibly use to try to figure out where the ring is, and that's Gollum. So I'm going to spring him. And he does spring him in exactly the same way, right? Or on exactly the same day, rather. So this has all the earmarks of, Sauron initiating I don't know what the executive order would be, but he's executing executive order, which is like hunt for the ring, right? And he attacks Osgiliath, and he organizes Gollum's escape on the same day. So okay. If that's why Sauron initiates it, how does Sauron initiate it is the next question. And the only thing we're told to suggest how would be the multiple references to the many spies that Sauron has in the area, right? First of all, can I just say, Mike, I love your suggestion on the discussion boards that your Shelob's web suggestion, that a spider came to the top of his tree and wove a web that said some orc, and then in smaller print, "We'll come and pick you up in a few days." Love that. Just love that idea. I laughed really hard at the some orc web concept, but I doubt that's how it happened. But I kind of wish I believed that that's how it happened, because that's fantastic. Anyway. We know that so like exactly what this suggests, I don't know. So first of all, let's come back to the Nazgul. Yes, as several of you have pointed out, there would be Nazgul still at Dol Guldur. Dol Guldur is right to hand, right? Dol Guldur is in southern Mirkwood. So he has he has a local center for action down there in southern Merkwood, with three of the Nazgul, I think, in place, and then they leave and they go. So they're going to be departing, and they're going to be meeting up with the Witch King and the rest of them who are coming up from the south. They're definitely going to be all together by the time they get to Isengard, but we don't. But anyway. But so yes, could they be involved? Could they be orchestrating the escape itself in Mirkwood? Yeah, absolutely, they could be. How would they know? So if they know, if the bad guys know that Gollum has been captured and taken to Mirkwood, they have to have been seen. We were talking about the possibility. That Sauron had. Was trying to keep Gollum under surveillance when he departed. That would be, it seems to me, the smartest thing to do if he thinks that there is a chance that Gollum is going to be able to find the ring on his own, or even maybe does he think it's even possible that Gollum knows more than he's revealed even under torture? That Gollum is in fact withholding information, and so he decides to let him go and tail him in order to find out where he goes. That also seems possible. Indeed, it seems from Unfinished Tales, I would say it seems likely that Tolkien was beginning to sort of think in those ways. That is, he seemed to want to sort of increase the extent to which Gollum resisted Sauron there. But anyway, okay. So Sauron has some means of communication with his servants in Dol Guldur. That's clear. The timing, unless the timing is pure coincidence, the timing seems to suggest that there is a plan and he has the opportunity to pursue that plan. How does he communicate with the Nazgul in Dol Guldur? How do Dol Guldur and Mordor stay connected? Not by Palantir. We know that. To me, the most likely answer has to be birds. I think the mechanism has to be something that flies, right? The idea of bats is kind of attractive, which is probably unfair to bats. The thing that I like most about bats as an option is just like, a little shout out to Thorin Gwethel. Back in the day, we know that, one of Sauron's lieutenants from the Silmarillion days was a vampire bat. Magic perhaps shape-changing, maybe just giant talking bat. We don't really know anything about Thuringwethel. She's a vampire. She's not a Dracula vampire. She's a bat. I think probably a giant bat. Giant talking bat seems likeliest, given what we know. I mean, he already had a giant talking wolf, Dragluin, and whatever else. Anyway, point is, and we know that evil bats were part of, like, they're along, came along with the goblins to the Battle of the Five Armies. So that bats of sinister reputation might be associated with Sauron. Certainly seems very plausible. Perfectly willing to believe that bats might have been, but some flying creature must be carrying messages to and fro in order to enable messages to travel quickly. We also know that he has birds and beasts who are spies. Gandalf is afraid of that. Gandalf and Aragorn notice this around the Shire, that suspicious birds and beasts who are probably spies of Sauron are congregating around the Shire. I don't know what that means or what that looks like, or I'm really not sure about that. Anyway. Yeah, I know bats get a bad rap. It is really true. And they are nocturnal, and I don't want to condemn something just for being nocturnal, but the association with darkness, it's there. Anyway, so there's some kind of flying communication, I think, not by flying Nazgul, because that I think would be too conspicuous and somebody would spot it, right? So that's unlikely to me. And again, we know that birds and beasts, he does have birds and beasts, right? So through birds and beasts, he could keep an eye on Gollum. Birds would seem the most likely. I think Gollum would detect and perhaps eat any sort of quadrupedal beast that was pursuing him and trying to keep an eye on him. But birds he might not notice. Could escape his views. Birds seem to me. Bats, I have to admit, the downside with bats, they kind of. The idea of bat spies is a little bit odd, right? Gollum is. I don't know. I guess Gollum does travel at night, but. Anyway, whatever. So can I easily imagine that some form of winged creature, right? Winged critter, could be first keeping an eye on Gollum, see Gollum captured by Aragorn and taken up to Merkwood, and then find him when he's there, right? That some bird would have seen Gollum up in the highest branches of this tree, where he would go. It would make sense that he would go, right? That he would go up to the top because he would be wanting to see what he could see. There's not much he could do, but he would want to go up there to plan what he might do. Anyway, so so one of the evil spy birds spots Gollum in the tree. Now he's there for some time, right? Gollum has been imprisoned in Mirkwood. It's not overnight. He's not sprung overnight, right? He's there for a substantial amount of time. Gandalf has time to get both Gandalf and Aragorn have time to leave and go do other things, right? Before Gollum gets sprung. It is theoretically true that the spiders could have located him. But see, I don't want to underestimate spiders, but this tree is separated from all the other trees and guarded by the elves. Giant spiders could no way get into that tree without the elves detecting them. We know the elves hate the giant spiders and consider them their enemies. That I think they would. I think they would catch on with that, right? If they saw giant spiders leaping across the clearing in order to get to the top of Gollum's tree. could they hide there, like when Gollum is taken back home, to underground, and then they, a spider secretes itself up in the tree and waits to talk to him the next day? It's possible. It's possible. Again, I can't rule it out. It just seems to me less likely. A bird would be very inconspicuous, of course, in that clearing, flying over that clearing. A giant spider anywhere near that clearing would be conspicuous, right? I mean, the elves consider them their enemies. So I think that's less likely. Not impossible, but less likely. So I'm thinking birds, right? So all that the spies of Mordor, which do seem to exist, would have to do would be to see, so he would have them searching Mirkwood, right? Keep an eye out. So Mirkwood bird spies, keep your eyes peeled, right? Or bats, keep your echolocation peeled. I don't know how you peel an echolocation, but I don't know. Anyway, whatever you do, keep your senses tuned for Gollum, and a bird during the day spots him up in the tree. This message is conveyed back to Dol Guldur, and they initiate the plan. That's Angrist, you're right. It is theoretically possible that a small spider up in the tops of the tree spotted Gollum and started, sent a message. Then crawled down the tree and over and up and went and found a big spider. I just think it unlikely. I know bats aren't blind. I totally believe that. So yeah, perhaps indeed bats are the perfect spies in every way. I would be perfectly willing to believe this. Yeah, so Nancy, how Sauron knew to search Mirkwood would be that they were spotted, that Aragorn and Gollum were spotted traveling, which seems to me the more likely, because it seems to me very likely that Sauron would have tried to keep Gollum under surveillance after he departed. That I think would be part of the overall plan there. So the spy finds Gollum. The spy then tells the people at Dol Guldur. Now, the last stage of the plan that would have to occur would be they'd have to communicate with Gollum as well. This is another reason why I'm thinking bird, because we do have precedent for talking birds, right? We've got the crows who can speak normal language. Is it possible that, it seems that, there's the thrush language, right? Which the men of Dale, at least the men of the line of Girion can speak. And Balin talks as if he can kind of make it out, but it's very quick and difficult, right? He's just not 100% sure he's getting it all. And he asks Bilbo, assuming that Bilbo might know, and Bilbo fakes it, right? And of course, we do have the eagles as well, obviously, as another major talking bird faction. So I think that it's more likely. We don't have any reason to think that squirrels can talk. We have no precedents for talking squirrels, but we do have some precedents for talking birds. So wouldn't Gollum eat a bird? Yes, I'm sure he would attempt to eat a bird, and so it might have taken several attempts to contact Gollum, but anyway, I certainly think that's possible. It would just have to, exactly, Sam. It would have to perch at a non-eating distance and speak. So I think that's possible. Yeah, we have some precedent for that. This means, by the way, don't eat the messenger. Exactly. They could leave a written message of some kind. It's possible, Flamifer. It's true that we don't know for sure whether or not Gollum is literate. just thinking for a second, no, we don't have any evidence for sure as to whether or not Gollum is literate. But anyway, the talking bird seems to me most likely anyway. In any case, it would be it would be more likely to be found out, right? I mean, like if there's a physical scrap of paper, you know, or parchment or something, there's a bigger chance that the elves are going to get that, right? Get their hands on that. So, yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're right, JJ. He does say, Gollum does, show some fondness for birds, nice birds, right? Now, I think clearly he means that they're nice to eat, but still. Okay. So the talking bird would seem to me to be the most plausible and well substantiated, not like that there's direct evidence for a talking bird in this case, but that talking birds exist is all I mean. Substantiated within Middle-earth, that talking birds are a thing. Besides which, this invites us to think more about something that's been alluded to several times, but that we've never really thought about, and the text never tells us about. How does Sauron's spy network function? Right? I mean, he does have birds and beasts who are his servants, apparently. So how does that work? Can he telepathically communicate with animals? I can't imagine he can telepathically communicate with animals necessarily. Could he give them commands? Maybe he could. I mean, his mind can reach out. It was reaching out to Frodo and Amon Hen, so maybe he can reach out and give commands to his bird spies or whatever. I can't imagine the birds can telepathically communicate back to him necessarily. And I don't know what the range is on that, or even if he can actually do it. I don't really know. So how does he recruit birds and beasts exactly? Right? I mean, how does that work? And they can't all just report directly to him. This is another reason why I don't think he it's just a telepathic connection. I think that they have to use his overall network here. So I think the birds are reporting back to Dol Guldur, not reporting back to Barad-dûr itself. Exactly, JJ. He doesn't want the information all coming back to him. He would want the information filtered up so only the most important stuff reaches his desk. Yeah, exactly. He's got better stuff to do than to be the personal minder of every avian spy in Middle-earth, right? What's more, he wouldn't want the delay. He's going to be he's sending them everywhere, right? So it's going to take a long time before they get back all the way back to Mordor. Much more efficient to have them checking in at Dol Guldur, say, and then in Dol Guldur they can make the call as to whether or not this is something the boss needs to know about. JJ says, "Oh, good. The news is they have found another large catch of acorns." Right? I'm going to fire that spy. Exactly. So I think that my suspicion as to how this works is that it has to be something like, again, we have a model, right? The model that we have here is the connection between the ravens of Erebor and the kings of the dwarves, and the connection, apparently, between the thrushes and the line of Girion. There are the two examples that we have that show that, some races of birds, right? Not just, and I don't just mean like a species of bird, but like a particular people, right? A particular family tradition, right? Can establish this kind of this kind of link. So there, I think there have to be, we are kind of compelled to imagine a series of corrupted birds who have been bred by Sauron, probably a good deal at Dol Guldur itself, right? And yeah, he's feeding them fell meats or fell seeds, or what, I don't know what a fell seed looks like. I actually am not 100% sure what a fell meat is either. But at least I can imagine it was the meat of a creature that was already particularly evil, right? Maybe the seeds are maybe there are fell seeds dropped by particularly evil plants. But anyway, I don't know. So, okay, so he breeds them up. Does he breed up evil squirrels also? I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, just knowing squirrels. But I think it's quite possible. So yeah, so I think that we should imagine that there are rooms in Barad-dûr and in Dol Guldur where there are like rookeries or whatever, where the evil spies check in. I mean, yeah, you're right, Dragon Tarakni. Old Man Willow would produce some fell seeds. That. You're totally right. Totally right about that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so, okay. This seems to me the most likely explanation for the how. And again, the message to be gotten to Gollum is fairly simple. And most of the birds could probably get it out before they were eaten, right? Which is just, they just have to say when, right? 5 days from now, in 5 days, orcs will attack. That's it. It's just got to be one sentence. It doesn't even have to be one grammatical sentence. Yeah. No, the animals don't have to be evil, Ardent Crayon. Sauron could trick them, but I don't think he's just deceiving otherwise well-intentioned creatures. That's not his M.O. His M.O. is going to be to take them in and to feed them fell food and to corrupt them to his service. So I'm afraid that these animals have been corrupted. And if that makes you unhappy to think of him corrupting squirrels and bats and birds, then just think that this, of course, is another wonderful consequence of the downfall of Barad-dûr at the end. And the deer, JJ, yeah, we can't ignore that. Something makes them so fierce. Sorry, that's for those of you who don't play, that's a Lotro reference. The deer, especially the closer you get to Mordor, the more ferocious the deer get. Yeah, but Finn says not the foxes. The foxes remain free agents, very possibly. Very possibly. Yeah. Yeah, Karita says the first thing to kill me in Lotro was a deer. Yeah, no, I got killed by brigands in the Chetwood first, but yeah, no, I think maybe the second one was a deer. Anyway, okay, so evil bird spies, I think, is so what's Gollum's role then? Again, all Gollum has to do is receive the message and take advantage of it. What happens with Gollum? Again, do I think he's like carried off cheerfully on the shoulders of the orcs and that he runs down and embraces the orcs? No, he's not palling up with the orcs. I think he's going to try to escape straight off. Right, I think he's going to try to escape in the chaos and not go with the orcs at all. If the orcs, and by the way, it does not seem to me at all obvious that the orcs would have orders to bring Gollum with them in captivity. Remember, that's not the plan, right? The boss's plan for Gollum is that he be left free, right? So I think that they're gonna, why would they want to keep him a prisoner? Why would they haul him back to Dol Guldur? Sauron could have just kept him in Mordor if that were his plan, right? And again, the fact that he initiated Operation Spring Gollum, right, on the same day that he's initiating Operation Release the Nazgul, suggests that these two things are linked in his mind, right? That these are his two-pronged strategy for trying to find the ring. And so he wants Gollum not only out on his own, but believing that he escaped on his own. So anyway, yeah. Now, JJ, you're right. Gollum would be... Sorry. Belongspun said Operation Freeagol. I like that. Anyway, sorry. So JJ says Gollum would have to be... He's smart enough to know that if a bird spy finds him in the treetop and says, hey man, we're going to spring you in 5 days, he's going to know that he's being watched, right? And he's going to be paranoid. And where does he go? Where does he end up? Moria, right? Where does he go? Back under the Misty Mountains. He goes back to his home terrain, the place that he knows best and where he feels most confident. Like, no bird's going to find me there, right? If I'm being spied on, if Sauron is keeping an eye on me and I want to be free of him, I've got to go somewhere. I've got to shake this tail, right? I've got to get somewhere where nobody is going to be able to track me, where I am confident that I won't be seen and that I won't be tracked and nobody will know where I am. And under the mountains, right? His old stomping ground, where he feels most confident on the closest thing to his home turf, right? So exactly. And Karita, exactly. Say what you want about Moria. It's very bird free. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So I think that has to now, and in doing this, is he thwarting Sauron? No, of course not. He's doing what Sauron wanted him to do. Is he going to shake his tail? Is Sauron going to be able to keep track of where he is? No, he's not going to. I mean, I suspect that he does successfully shake off the surveillance in Moria. That he does shake it off under the mountains. But that's totally. I mean, I would guess, again, thinking through what appears to be Sauron's plan here, it would seem that Gollum's shaking off the surveillance is keeping surveillance on Gollum is a bonus, right? Having Gollum free is, again, he's not relying on the birds for the success of his Gollum plan. He believes that if he lets Gollum go, he's going to be able to drag Gollum back, especially if Gollum finds the ring. So, exactly. For the sake of Sauron's original plan, the more free Gollum feels, the better. Absolutely. Now, how does the bird talk to Gollum without the elves hearing it, Cecilia, is an excellent question to which I don't have the answer. Elves have very good hearing. All I can imagine is that, I mean, it is a very tall tree, right? And a bird wouldn't be loud necessarily. It doesn't have to be like a very raucous raven or something like that. Not responding to that, Karita. If the no. If the bird is a small, I mean, the bird doesn't have to be speaking very, if the bird is speaking quietly enough and there's enough other noise and the tree is tall enough, it's possible for me to imagine that the elves don't overhear it, or at least don't overhear like that it's, words. Right. JJ says maybe they also send a really loud bird who perches on the lower branches and makes some covering sound. Possibly. Can't rule it out. Can't rule it out. Yeah. So, or a bird drops a bottle of wine. that would have been an excellent cunning plan to start with, right? Just you don't even need that. Just have have a bunch of squirrels roll up a barrel right against the foot of the tree, and jailbreak managed, right? Absolutely. Durambar suggests they could stuff the bird with the message so that while Gollum's eating it, he discovers it. Yeah, no, I doubt it, but that's a fun suggestion. Okay, so that's where. So what is Gollum? So you're Gollum. What do? Right, this bird talks to you and says you're gonna get sprung. I agree, JJ, that he's gonna be paranoid. Right, that he is going to be worried about this. That this gets, I mean, he's under surveillance. The birds have found him. Sauron knows where he is, for crying out loud. I mean, this is kind of a good news, bad news situation, right? We're going to help you escape from the elves, but the long arm of Sauron is reaching out to you, right? And that's not going to be cool. So Gollum is going to escape. He's going to try to escape. We know this. He's not just going to pal up with the orcs. He's going to try to get away from both the elves and from Sauron, and he believes that he does so. And in fact, he may genuinely do so and get rid of his surveillance as well. And now he believes he is, on his own and free again. And he's going to keep searching for the ring because, of course, he is, right? Yeah. Okay. So that, I think, is the best we can do. I would not have any problem. I mean, I wouldn't feel the need to fight with somebody who had another reading of this or who believed in a different version of this. But this seems to me to be an explanation that fits all of the facts that we know, and there's no point in this which is not given some kind of precedent within Middle-earth here. So I think that this all works. All right. So let's get back to the text then. Whew. I don't know if we've necessarily solved it, but I think we've done pretty well. So Legolas goes on. We have failed to recapture Gollum. We came on his trail among those of many orcs, and it plunged deep into the forest, going south. But ere long it escaped our skill, and we dared not continue the hunt, for we were drawing nigh to Dol Guldur, and that is still a very evil place. We do not go that way. Well, well, he is gone, said Gandalf. We have no time to seek for him again. He must do what he will, but he may play a part yet that neither he nor Sauron have foreseen. So, by the way, how many slides does that count as? I mean, we've done so many slides tonight. Okay, so Gandalf indulges with the heavy foreshadowing here at the end. So his trail is found among those of many orcs. So it seems that Gollum does not succeed in escaping in the struggle, right? In the confusion. He does go off with the orcs, but he is soon to give the orcs the slip, it seems. Not surprising. But the orcs were taking him south to Dol Guldur, so that all seems to fit. Yes, Emily, this, I agree with you. The question, Bilbo is going to say later, we'll talk about this later. Okay, well, Emily, I'll save this till we get to Bilbo's statement at the beginning of the next chapter. But let me just say that I agree with you, Emily. Yeah, bring it up again. There we go. Good. Thanks, Emily. All right. So the fact that the orcs all head down to Dol Guldur certainly does suggest that this was coordinated from there, and which again seems to make sense that it would go through the Nazgul who were there. So that all seems to hold together. One phrase in that first paragraph that perplexes me a little bit. They do not go towards Dol Guldur. That's fine. But ere long it escaped our skill. What skill? Their tracking skill? Surely the tracks of the whole troop of orcs does not escape their skill, right? I mean, I have a little more confidence in the skill of the wood elves at, woodcraft, that they could track a pack of orcs all the way to the orcs' destination, right? So I'm thinking it must be Gollum's prints in particular, yes, that they did detect Gollum's trail among those of many orcs at first. So they had some definite evidence that Gollum was with them, the orcs, that is, going south. But they don't, I think what he's saying here, what that amounts to is, we can't prove that he actually went to Dol Guldur. He might have slipped away and we missed it, right? But it escaped their skill to confirm that Gollum's trail was still with the orcs as it continued to go south. It is possible that the orcs could have carried Gollum at some point, but again, I can't imagine that the orcs have strict orders to make sure they hold on to him no matter what. If anything, the orc captain, the Grishnach of this party, could well have been instructed, your first objective is to free him, right? Kill the elves that are there and bring away Gollum. Objective number 2, let him escape. Right. Don't tie him up. Pretend, make him believe that you're taking him as a prisoner back to Dol Guldur, but don't keep a steady eye on him. Let him escape. That seems to me very likely. It's possible the orcs and Gollum traveled the path at different times, Tom. I think that's conceivable. But I think it's doubtful. I certainly don't think that Gollum would be tracking the orcs, so if they are not traveling together, it must be because the orcs had gone first and Gollum had gone after them. But why on earth would he do? I mean, so he wouldn't do that. So it wouldn't be that. It would have to be that he went first and the orcs were pursuing after him. But why would he go south towards Dol Guldur? That doesn't make any sense either. So I tend to not think so. Yeah. Exactly. So, JJ, I also wonder if Gollum would be fooled a second time by the let him escape thing. But what's the alternative, right? I mean, what alternative does Sauron have? If he tells the orcs to let him go. Like, I mean, if the orcs say, okay, we were told to let you go. Bye now. You take off. Then that's gonna be much worse, right? That's a far worse outcome for Sauron. Gollum's gonna be way more suspicious then than he's gonna be if he just escapes a second time. So again, even if he does suspect, what better alternative is there? And the second thing is, Gollum is also, well, he thinks a lot of himself, right? I mean, nobody who speaks of himself, who speaks to himself and of himself, who speaks to himself in the first person plural like that, he's got a high opinion of himself. So that he has managed to cunningly escape a second time and believes it to be due to his own skill, that doesn't seem to me inappropriate or sort of unknown, right? Yeah. So exactly, Finn. He's just talking to the wisest person in the room. That's it. That's Gollum's viewpoint. So yes, I do think that whether or not he might be more suspicious. Again, we know he's going to be more suspicious. He knows they're watching him, right? Sauron can't help that now, right? But still, a Gollum on his own who does not think he's been given a chore, right? He's being given a task. A Gollum who now knows he's being watched. Well, that's not quite as good as a Gollum who thinks he's gotten away scot-free from the beginning, but still, you know, it's still plan B in execution, right? So I think that still would work. Okay. For the final paragraph there. Well, well, he is gone. We have no time to seek for him again. He must do what he will. But he may play a part yet that neither he nor Sauron have foreseen. This is the final... to those of you who were emphasizing the potential of the role of chance in freeing Gollum, again, I don't believe it, because Gollum himself seems to have contrived it with his refusing to come down from the tree that day. I don't believe it was a coincidence or an apparent coincidence. But I certainly do think that Providence was taking a hand in this. And in its way, I think that it's even more powerful that it should have been a conspiracy by Sauron. That actually, to me, augments the providential angle of Gollum's escape, because it is not just a chance, if chance you call it, circumstance. Instead, it becomes yet another example of evil will shall evil mar, right? And that the plans of the enemy themselves prove to be the very means by which the evil is overthrown. Right. So yes, Kimber, exactly. Once again, Sauron proves that he shall be but Iluvatar's own instrument to bring about ends far greater and more wonderful than he could possibly have imagined. Exactly. So yes, I do think that to me, that fits even better. Like the fact that it's Sauron's actions, Sauron's conspiracy, far from, us having to choose, like, is it Providence or is it Sauron? It's both. Clearly, it's both. Everything is like, there's nothing outside the scope of Providence. But again, and Gandalf seems to be picking up on this, right? We know that Gandalf has had, well, I don't want to call it a fixation. It's not like it's unhealthy or something like that. But Gollum has had, at the very least, a sort of shrewd suspicion about Gollum from the beginning, right? Even in part, his choice to seek for Gollum. On the one hand, like, it was the best chance that they had of finding a lead to figure out the provenance of the ring and to confirm that. But I think there's more to it from the beginning. Gandalf has always had a sense, a feeling that Gollum was important. And he does speak up for Gollum. He doesn't want Gollum killed, right? They easily could have contrived that, right? But he doesn't do it. And it's out of pity, right? He is showing pity for Gollum. And not least, I think, because he will now see the significance of Bilbo's own pity as he explains it to Frodo, right? If having pity on Gollum was such an important and a good thing for Bilbo to have done, maybe we should keep following up on that policy, right? That by itself, even if you have no other ideas, certainly seems like a good plan. But I do think that Gandalf remember, he says it to Frodo before. So long before he discovers that Gollum has escaped from his prison, he tells Frodo way back in chapter 2 of book 1 that he believes that, Gollum, he thinks that Gollum has a part to play, that there's, that everybody will be grateful for the pity of Bilbo, that the pity of Bilbo shall rule the fate of many. Remember that? So Gandalf has had some foresight about Gollum for a long time. Yeah, and Sam, you're right. He does threaten him with fire. Absolutely. He's not gentle with him. He is patient and he feels pity, but he is not gentle. He is urgent in his need to get Gollum to talk about what he knows. Anyway, that previous... so the statement that he makes here doesn't necessarily suggest that, he's only just now coming to think that this is, that this is true, that Gollum has a role. He's believed that he has a part to play yet for some time. This sounds to me like confirmation, like Gandalf receiving confirmation. He's not surprised. One way or another, Emily, he's not shocked by this news, right? In fact, I wonder if Gandalf isn't half expecting something like this. The pity of Bilbo might rule the fate of many. Well, how will that be if Gollum is going to stay in prison, right, the whole time? So even his... now, again, his hope when he kept him in prison was not that they were keeping Gollum merely in a life sentence, right? Gandalf is not being like, well, he does not say like Aragorn does. Aragorn seems to, like, his vision is for life incarceration, right? Let's just keep Gollum out of mischief, right? But Gandalf seems to want to heal him, right? To cure him. So maybe when Gandalf is imagining the pity of Bilbo ruling the fate of many, he's imagining what good a healed Gollum could yet do on their side. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what Gandalf imagines it might look like. I'm not really sure. But Gollum remaining as a sullen and unrepentant prisoner, nursing his grievances on the top of a tree in Mirkwood for years uncounted while everything else happens, that would be no kind of fulfillment of Gandalf's premonition, right? Gandalf's instinct about Gollum there. Right. Now, JJ is suggesting this, of course, implies that it was in fact Gandalf who organized Gollum's escape. Right. JJ says that's why he wants to move on and stop discussing. That's why he breaks in here, right, and takes back over the conversation. Let's not probe any more deeply into this. You could be onto to something, JJ, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I really don't see Gandalf conspiring with the orcs of Dol Guldur to bring about the rescue. But, you can't absolutely... No, you can't rule it out. Actually, I'm totally ready to rule it out. But, again, I don't think that he's disappointed. And again, this is where I think we can see the difference between Aragorn's perspective on this and Gandalf's, right? Aragorn's reaction is we will all rue it bitterly, I fear, right? Bad is going to come from this. And Gandalf is like, yeah, not sure, actually. I think that good might come of this. He may have a part to play yet that neither he nor Sauron have foreseen. They are both conspiring together and neither of them mean any good. But good may yet come despite that. Absolutely. Okay. Karina says, I want a Clue style video in which all possible options are enacted. Karina, I can't pretend I wasn't thinking about Clue myself when I was going through this. Yeah. I would, so we could do a reenactment. Karita, that sounds like an excellent reenactment material. Let's reenact like 3 or 4 different versions of the escape of Gollum, and see which ones we think are the most plausible. That could work. That could work. Anyway, all right. Well, I'm not going to move on to another slide at this point. Because, of course, the next slide, this is the end of a topic anyway, and Gandalf is going to launch into the final narrative. There is one last narrative portion of the Council of Elrond, and then, of course, we enter the deliberation phase of the Council of Elrond. But there is one more narrative, and of course, it's going to be the Saruman narrative that Gandalf is going to give. So we'll save that for next time. All right. Very good. Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for joining me. It's field trip time, so we're gonna go on our field trip now. For those who are on Twitter, feel free to come over to Twitch and join me. Twitch.tv/SignumU. We're gonna enter Carn Doom itself in today's field trip, so it's pretty exciting. We're going to start with our scenic overlook. So thanks everybody for joining me, and I will see, for those of you who are not going to continue on the field trip, I'll see you guys next week.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey there, good evening. All right.
Yeah, interesting discussions today, man.
Yeah. I'm fairly pleased with where we ended up with this. I think I'm not 100% convinced. Like I'm not like 100%. This is absolutely what must have happened.
We are going to Tarman Sursa. Just inside of Carn Doom.
That's right. That's where we're headed.
Sorry, didn't mean. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm like absolutely 100% positive that this is how it must have happened, but I am saying that I do think that it's the best. It seems to me overall like the most plausible explanation of the whole thing.
I was sad talking scrolls were not explored, because given his penchant for mythology, that would have been a cute little nod to Ratatosk, but.
It's possible. Like the talking squirrel thing is conceivable. That they at least
eat Rocky.
Right. But unlike talking birds, there's no precedent for that, right?
That is true. Yep, talking bird. Yeah. But how would Gandalf turn into a talking bird if Gandalf was behind it?
Right. Yeah, no, I don't really think that's very likely, but...
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's head it back up to the scenic overlook.
Okay. Oh no, it's dark.
Oh, we can't see? No. They turn off the lights.
Time, my age-old enemy.
Oh, man. What do we have here? What time is it? Oh, it's the late watches.
Okay. So
let's kill time and wait for dawn. Well, first of all, can I just say I would have expected, from what I remembered from last time, like with the Poison River seemed a little bit more luminescent than...
Maybe it's only when the light hits it just right, or that bioluminescent algae starts to breed.
Even by dark, I would have expected this to be a little bit more, like, eerily lit up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But...
it's just kind of stagnant and stinky looking.
Yeah. Well, let's begin with what we can see even in the dark.
Okay.
What we can see from here so far in the dark is, in the background, these towers up here. Now, I'm not convinced about these towers, these near towers.
Mm-hmm. Not convinced about what?
I'm not convinced about their age. Because look at the stone that they appear to be made of. It looks kind of like this stone in this wall next to us. Like the new construction. It's not the old, like,
oh yeah,
you know, black and white walls that we see in other towers and walls, which are clearly old Angmar. Which is interesting.
I think it's one of those dealies where when the old Witch King fell, like everything fell down, like in the movies.
Well, that would be one possibility, right? That, or even that they destroyed it. Now, the evidence for that is fairly weak, since the archaeological evidence for that seems weak, considering that we've seen a lot of the old stuff not torn down, you know, further down. So why would they tear it down afterwards, here and here only? But
you notice we can see stars over here?
Oh.
Aren't we usually under that sort of ghastly green
Yeah.
force field? And then I can see the sun trying its darndest to get over this smoggy hill.
That's super interesting. What is glowing in the north? Is that the Northern Lights?
That's the sun, I think. I think it's the sun
No, this is
coming up.
I'm
but
facing
no, that's
due
the north.
north.
You're right.
Yeah.
Maybe some kind of northern lights.
It doesn't look quite like the Northern Lights do up in Forakel.
Yeah. Aurora Borealis at this time of night in this part of the country.
It looks more like something that's shining right over the horizon.
It's moving a lot. It looks like it's fighting for its life to get over.
Yeah.
And it does make me wonder when the sun comes up whether we're going to see the horrible fell sky again.
Yeah.
There's
What happened to the
North
fell
Star,
sky? Did it used to be here? I mean, I
don't
remember.
know.
I remember we
It
were
was in
looking
the
at it
courtyard.
down in the courtyard.
Yeah. We assumed it was coming from those little hook fountains, which you can see right across the bridge.
Yeah, and I wanted to come back to those. Well, hang on a second. I was going to look at those, but let's we have some time anyway, and because I want to wait until dawn. So let's explore. Let's see if we can find the boundary here. Let's go back.
Even when the sun comes up, we got to wait till it gets into a part where we can see.
Well, look at that. Right before the. Can I get to? No, I can't. Right before the gate showed up, and I could see through, and I could see stars.
Yeah, I can see stars too.
I can see stars through the hole in the top of the gate. Okay. Yeah. Now see, there they are. Look at that. Look at those beautiful.
No, there it is. There's the sky.
There it is. Now the stars are gone. Once we cross over into here.
I guess stars are only for the privileged few.
Well, that's really interesting. And from here,
you can
of
see
course. Yeah.
Yeah, look. Yeah, you're looking back, you can see it over there.
Exactly. And we cross back over the threshold. Stars.
Oh, there's stars again.
That's very interesting.
It does kind of imply that this is sort of a beacon of good here.
I wonder. Yeah, I mean, is it some... You'd think, though... I mean, if our theory is that the hillmen in this area have turned into, like, counter-agents, essentially, that they would kind of blow their cover if it took that out. But, wow, okay. That is really interesting. So, Finn, we are in Tarman Sorsa, up near... so, yeah, the light does seem to be coming from Carn Dûm itself. Or behind Carn Dûm? I mean...
It doesn't... Yeah, from where I'm standing, it looks like it's coming right over the hill to the right of it.
Yeah.
Now, let's see what we can find on the ground. We can track back here, maybe.
Yeah, you can see, Emily, the rays shining up. I mean, it, and the way that it sways back and forth. I mean, it looks like a very large spotlight with some like waving grass in front of it.
Yeah, like a car sale.
Yeah, there's some kind of evil clearance sale going on north of Carn.
Evil furniture at low, low prices. No payments until 2022.
Something like that. Something like that. Yeah, I don't understand. But the bigger phenomenon, that is to say, the lack of the evil sky.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just noticing that I can actually see the moon move.
Huh.
Like I'm like watching the moon tick, tick, very slowly through the sky. I never noticed that before. Anyway,
that a thing.
So the now I can't stop watching the moon set. I should probably not do that, or else I'll see nothing else.
The stars are moving too.
Yeah.
Very slowly.
Hypnotic.
But interestingly enough, the canonical constellations of like Manelmakar, the Plough, whatnot, do not move.
Yes. They are fixed stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Affixed to the firmament.
Yes. Okay. Well, I
don't think we're going to get much out of this right now. I'm still jet black.
How long do the late watches last, for crying out loud?
It shifted to
4 it's 4 dawn
so,
now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting there.
Basically, when the moon sets, things will change.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still got a while, so we might want to just go across the bridge and see what we can see.
We can go. Well, let me look at then the one last thing here.
Okay.
One last thing is, so the bridge. We've got the bridge that goes over there to Carn. And immediately next to it, the one thing we can see clearly is the metal fishhook fountain, right?
Yep.
So we've got the metal fishhook fountain, and we've got the smokestacks.
Yep.
I have to think that the smokestacks and the fishhook fountain. Now, our theory has been from the beginning that the fishhook fountains are new, right? That this is part of New Angmar. And if we are correct that that big enormous fishhook fountain down in the is the source of all of the evil, the evil sky, right? Then that makes sort of the more sense. But the implication of the stars and moon in this area, the implication is that Carn is not itself the source of this shadow. That Carn is actually sort of free of this, that it's not something which is like emerging from Carn and sweeping out. It's something that they are like sending out.
It's almost like they're dumping that waste into the other parts of Angmar.
Exactly, while keeping the sky over Carn itself clear, which you wouldn't expect. You would the natural expectation is that like the evil atmosphere is going to get worse and worse and worse the more you get towards the center. But again, I come back to the difference between New Angmar and Old Angmar, right? This is not the Witch King's Angmar. This is an attempt to reconstruct the Witch King's Angmar. This is Carn reoccupied by lesser people. I mean, none of these people, not like the false king is not the Witch King, right? He's not as powerful as the Witch King is. So they're able to generate, this evil sky effect, right? But they're pumping that. It's like it has this like mechanical source. It doesn't emerge organically from Carn itself. Carn, well, I mean, look up. It's kind of empty here, right? Like the evil influence of Carn is not what it was. Unless the evil influence is suggested by the clearance sale that's going on just behind it. But let's see if we can pinpoint that better by changing our location. So let's head over the bridge. We can, when the sun comes up, we can run back and finish up over here again.
Sure.
But I know it's gonna take a little while yet before the sun rises, so there's no point standing in place. Okay. Oh man, this would be such a nice view too.
Yeah. Well, we can keep the milestone and check it out next time.
Yeah. Oh, well, that was extreme. Okay. All right.
Still nothing in the sky yet.
Same kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still stars. Same kind of landing. So now if we look here, see there's the old Angmar walls, right?
Yep.
So those are old walls from Carn Doom, and then we've got the Tudor houses and one of the new stone constructions over here too. So one of the new walls, right? Mm-hmm. And one of these sort of stable things. No rituals or anything attached to this. Like there's no altar in here or anything. It's just like a stable, just like this other wooden lean-to that's constructed over here. So you can see the hillmen set up in this area too on this side of the bridge. Mm-hmm. Beneath this wall, this gate here.
It looks like all this was set up a long time ago though, because look how overgrown and unlevel everything is.
Yeah. And you've got the flagstones, right, with the grass growing up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely like a ruin. Mm-hmm. Though again, I suspect that this house is less. What was this for? Was it, like a guard house for folks who were they guarding the bridge here? I don't know. Well, let's see what they said.
I'd have to see what's ahead to know what they'd be guarding.
Yeah. Now notice they didn't put up a gate here in what seems obviously to be a gateway. Instead, they have braziers, right? And these are the new style braziers that they've erected in here.
Try to keep some of the mold away. Yeah, these just all look abandoned.
Okay, these are orcs, right? Okay.
War Master.
All right, so we're getting orcs. Another wooden lean-to over here. Now this is really interesting. Look at the fish hook up on top of this tower.
Oh yeah.
See here.
Look at the sky.
Oh, and we're back to the sky. Fascinating. So it is just over where the good guys live. Boy, you'd think that would be kind of a tell. Right. Somebody would have come out there and been like, hang on, are you guys doing good over here? Because something is disrupting the sky over you.
Where's your smogulous smog, friend?
Exactly. But anyway, back to this fishhook thing. Look at the difference between the metals. The metal at the top of the tower and the metal of the fishhook. I think that was placed there afterwards. It just doesn't. It looks much newer than the tower itself. So this is an old a tower from Old Angmar. Mm-hmm. But the new Angmarim have imposed this on them.
You can see what's left of the scaffold when they were trying to get it up there.
Right. Yeah, we do have the scaffold over there. Exactly. Right, that's why we have scaffold. That makes perfect sense. We would expect to see scaffolding, right? Yes.
Yep, but they didn't take it down. They just sort of left it to fall apart.
Oh, and somebody built the house up there. See, that wasn't part of the Old Angmar. The house, right? The Witch King never said, like, let's put up a little, timber and plaster house up on this wall. Like, no way. Some hillmen with grandiose ideas.
There's the light on. There's probably squatters in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I think they still occupied it. And is there anything up this way? Is this a dead end? No, it's not a dead end. right, so let's go this way first. Okay. All right, more old walls with new
Lots of this
braziers.
big volcanic rocks sticking out of everything too.
Yeah. More orcs. What's this guy? Oh, warg. Funny looking warg.
He's like a honey badger warg.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just looking back at the architecture. We've got some blighted trees. Very long dead.
Ooh, different kind of house head. Look at that.
Oh. Oh my.
Goodness.
Oh wow. This is quite something.
So much of it. It's a town.
This is... Okay.
It's an indoor town.
Okay. All right. So the first thing to notice is that this whole area is almost completely surrounded by the old Angmarim structure. This is a courtyard of old Angmar.
Yep.
And there is an exception. This little wall over here.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not a wall, it's a gateway.
Oh yeah.
It's got both sides, right? So yeah. These pillars were erected. That's a new bridge. So that bridge must have fallen down. The old bridge, if there was a bridge, must have fallen down. So they built these pillars in order to... Because there's not a bridge up there? It is a bridge.
Yeah.
Looks like a
That's
bridge.
totally a bridge.
Right, so these new pillars were built in the new regime to hold up bridges.
Looks like there's a rock slide or something.
But this building, you know what this building looks like? This is a match to that wooden building out by the gate that we were, the one that didn't fit in that courtyard.
Oh, the little church-looking thing.
Yeah, a little church-looking thing. This is a big church.
It's a big thing now.
Exactly.
Big old Lutheran church now.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to decide is whether or not it's a later addition or whether it's native, whether that's old Angmarim construction.
Mm-hmm. You see the wheel sign here?
Yeah.
The one that looks like the one on the bridge, except they got rid of the P on it.
Exactly. I'll get back to that. But yeah, no, I was looking at that. Okay. The details are a little bit different, but I think this is. So I think that means that the stone building in that they must have taken that over from old Angmar.
Yeah.
They built the new Tudor houses, the good guys over there, the other hillmen. But this seems to be like the residential structure of old Angmar.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the walls, so we see their defensive structures. This would seem to be so presumably, like we've seen in other places, like among the dwarves, they lived inside here, right? This is just a facade. It's not like a little narrow house. It goes in behind these walls and leads to some kind of city or
barracks or something. It does occur to me that when we've seen these barracks before, everything was boarded up and sealed off, and half of the door, like all of the doors, were non-existent. So it does seem like there might have been buildings like this that we either couldn't see or that had since been destroyed.
Right. Yeah. Which does support the idea of dating it back to the old Angmarim period.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we look at this over here, These ones over here are down at the ground level, so it looks like in theory it could have been built onto, like the wall was there and then this was built on later on. But if we look over here, we see the same thing built up like on top, right? And that just looks much more like how it was designed to be. Plus we can see the windows, the same exact style of windows set into the old walls, right? And
well, the other ones, they're all bricked up.
Exactly, yeah. So that this wall seems to me to really kind of seal it. That those stone houses are, so that's like how the residential entrances in Carn Dûm, or barracks as you say, or whatever, were fitting in there. This is the entrance to Urogarth?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
But
well, maybe
we're getting some light out here.
Maybe we do Urogarth next, actually, and then finish the rest of Carn Dûm, rather than finishing all of Carn Dûm and then doing Urogarth that seems like an anticlimactic end to our. The fangs coming down are really fascinating. Yeah, I was about to say that, of course, the fangs look like they're the same kind of fishhook metal that we've seen in other places, but that makes sense because look, the whole stone platform from which they are depending is the new stone, right? That's also a newer thing.
Yeah, you can see they built up some supports for the hooks with the stone too.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool banner.
Yeah, the banner. Do we have any of those at ground level? Not the eye banner. That's a simple orc banner, but the...
Almost looks like a gateway with an iron crown.
Yeah.
Like it's the Carn Dûm flag. Like this is the citadel where the iron crown resides. Kind of thing.
Right. Not the Angmar flag, but the Carn Dûm flag in particular. Maybe. Yeah, I think this is supposed to be an eye. It is stylized in a rather interesting way. The vertical slit, of course. I mean, it's like an inside-out eye. You know, the red eye always has a vertical
really
slit.
Shocked.
Right. Whoa. Right.
Oh!
But yeah, it's almost like the pupil is on the outside. Like the pupil is bigger than the entire eye, right? It's almost like an inverted eye. Not inverted in the sense it turned upside down, but instead turned inside out.
Intriguing.
Yeah, but that's all clear orcish construction, though flanked by two of those same wooden lean-tos, which do seem to be Hillman constructions.
Yep. Oh, look, another blighted white tree.
Yeah, which is interesting. When was this tree happy? When was this tree's last good day?
I don't know, but it seems like whenever we see these little towns, we always see a blighted white tree. Like it's supposed to be some sort of mockery of the white tree in the courtyard.
Yeah, we've seen a single blasted tree in a courtyard a bunch of times, haven't we, in Angmar?
Yep, and all in buildings like this.
Mm-hmm. I mean, do you think it was a thematic choice? It couldn't be initiated by Mordorith, though, because he's not been here long enough. I mean, he's New England.
Life imitating art.
Right, maybe. That tree has been dead a long time.
Yeah.
Is New Angmar old enough to explain? Like, was it blighted? Like, did it grow during the hiatus? Is what I'm wondering, and then get blighted when New Angmar returned, Or is this a very long dead tree? I think there's too many. If this tree had been dead for more than 1,000 years, there's no way it'd still be up now.
Yeah, no, the one on my lawn's only been there 2 years, and it's all ready to come down.
Right, exactly. Now it is sheltered from the wind here in this little courtyard, so the wind isn't going to blow it down. But still, yeah, it's not gonna stay for 1,000 years like that.
No.
So
I like the idea of the land was starting to heal, and then it all just went wrong again. Right,
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. That the trees grow, maybe even are planted. But I'm going back now. It's dawn now, so we're gonna close out by heading back to the views. Anyway, yeah. So I think it must have grown there. So I don't think that tree was planted by the Witch King. I don't think there was a tree there in the Witch King's time.
Plant a tree and then kill it. No.
Right. We're going to plant trees just in order to wither them. Okay, now I'm really tempted to go up this angle because I think we can. Where does this go?
Looks like a dead end.
Except it doubles back.
Oh, switch back. We gonna go over that bridge?
Oh man. Oh no.
Oh no, you found another secret tunnel.
Whoop. Oh.
Oh. Huh.
Look, it's a town.
Okay, remember this for next time.
Oh.
Trading post?
It's the trading post.
It's a trading post. Alright, good to know.
Hey, I found a shortcut. Here I thought I was digressing, and instead I found a shortcut.
Huh.
Wait a second. Where even are we?
No, this is a different... This is not the same town.
This is a different
This is
town.
Carn proper.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I recognized the gates for a second, and I'm like, but there were not these. Okay, yeah, let's go. I don't want to...
Yeah, let's head back.
Yeah. All right, it is a digression. Okay, phew. Yeah, this was... This is crazy. All right. See, like, random switchbacks up into the mountains, like... Take you weird places.
Like a moth to the lamp.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll come back. We'll come back.
It does make me want to, look at more switchbacks rather than just ignore them these days.
Yeah. And this is just a cliff? No, this just goes down. Notice the door is the same style as the old doors.
Yep.
Okay. Back to the bridge.
It's a beautiful hazy morning. The sky is mustard colored.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't tell that the air wasn't polluted now.
Yeah. Hang on, let's go back. Now that it's daytime, is it still not polluted, or does the pollution only disperse at night?
Maybe it's an Elbereth thing.
Yeah, it is. So you get stars, but you don't get blue sky. Stars, but no sun.
Yep.
Interesting.
Sounds like elf magic to me.
That's pretty suspicious. Maybe it's just like a loophole. Okay, all right. This is indeed what I wanted to see.
The layer cake of doom.
Okay, indeed. Wow. Okay. Wow. All right.
I think he's compensating for something.
The first thing I'm looking for is evidence of the older and newer strata.
I'm not seeing any old stuff.
Me neither. Nothing that is guaranteed old. Is the new Carn... Did they tear down the old Carn Doom? We were seeing the old stuff over there. Yeah, or
Divine retribution destroying the tower.
Did they come here and dismantle it?
Maybe.
The good guys? That's really interesting. Because it's all the brickwork, and it's none of it the old black and white stone.
Yeah.
And we've got the fishhook metal all over the towers, and now that I would be prepared for in any case, right? Just like we saw the fishhook imposed on what was clearly an old Angmar tower, right, on the other side of the bridge. That they've come in and put up a bunch of these obelisks and smokestacks is not surprising, right? And fishhook fountains and things, right? That all looks new, right? Like they're doing something there that has something to do with the poison river somehow. But the walls themselves, the towers themselves, this all looks new.
Yeah.
So New Angmar has built a whole new Carn Dûm?
Yeah.
Did they necessarily build it in the same place where the old Carn Dûm was?
Maybe this is a better location.
Yeah, maybe they upgraded. Maybe the old Carn Dûm was raised all the way to the ground.
Or maybe it's one of these other buildings in here it's been repurposed.
Well, I will be really interested to see where the border ends. Because where we were across the bridge was almost all old stuff, right?
Yeah.
But this is all new stuff. Will we find a demarcation where the all new stuff begins? Is this just some sort of optical illusion and it will look old when we get there? I don't know.
Always possible. Can't wait to find out.
But that is really fascinating. I was not expecting that. I really wasn't. I thought most of these were going to be old. I could see these ones in the foreground, even in the dark. And I was like, well, maybe they just built those new, like as a, they're just like expanding, right? This is like the new little suburb of Carn Dûm over there. But no, the whole thing, right? They were just made a new little commuter hub for the evil factory works down here. But no, the whole thing is new stone. Wow. Very remarkable. Maybe, Catriona, maybe the wall with the red banners on is a vestige of I see the slightly darker stone there behind those towers. Maybe that is a vestige of the old construction. Yeah. Now those archways, of course, are really interesting. We need to end here, but I'll just go back to the bridge and then we'll end there. Okay. First of all, from this angle, look at what we can see lots of. Houses.
Yeah. Those little half timber dealies.
Yeah. That's where the Hillmen settled, right? This is like the Hillmen town. That's really interesting.
So cool.
But all new stone. And new platforms, some of which appear to be hovering in midair.
Yeah, that's a...
Can't wait to see what that's about.
That's your cantilevered nightmare right there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, all right. Well, we will hope for daylight next week when we come back. Next week, let's go back in and we'll head down into Urgarth, I think. Is Urgarth an instanced area? Or can you just walk in?
Yep, you will need a group for it.
Oh, so it is instanced?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
We'll sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah, Katrin, I was looking at the goblin yurts down here, which look a lot like the yurts in the Malin had.
Yeah, that's where the dwindled slaves live.
Yes. Oh, right. The non-hobbit looking things. The pale men or whatever.
Pale folk,
folk,
that's
yeah.
what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, much more to explore here in Carn Dûm. We'll probably head into Uragarth next time. We'll see where we go there. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and we'll see you next week for more Carn Dûm exploration. Lots to see here still. Thanks, everybody. Good night now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining me on this epic exploration of The Lord of the Rings and of Standing Stone's video adaptation of Tolkien's story. If you are having even half the fun I'm having on this journey, I hope you will consider supporting the project by donating at signumuniversity.org/fund.